In the year of our Lord 1386, in a distant Welsh castle, a boy was born. He was not born in London, nor was he the son of a king. He was Henry of Monmouth, son of the exiled Henry Bolingbroke. The castle is known as Monmouth Castle, built in the wake of William the Conqueror's conquest of England. His father, a man of ambition and defiance, would one day overthrow King Richard II. And so the young boy's fate was forever changed. The boy, who had once been a ward of the king he would one day depose, grew into a man of extraordinary discipline. Tales of his wild youth were later written, but the truth is he was always a man of focus. He fought alongside his father from a young age, proving himself at the Battle of Shrewsbury at just 16, where an arrow struck his face, a wound that would forever mark him. For many people, that injury would have been lethal. Henry's position, however, ensured the best possible medical care. John Bradmore, the royal physician, managed to save the young Henry's life. He learned to rule and to command, not from a book, but from the brutal and bloody theatre of war. When his father, Henry IV, died in 1413, the kingdom he inherited was a fragile one. The country was rife with rebellion and discord, and the treasury was bare. Henry V, still in his mid-20s, saw not a divided kingdom, but an opportunity. He saw in the ancient claims of his great-grandfather a path to unity and glory. He would renew the claim to the throne of France, a claim that had fueled the 100 Years' War for decades. This was no fool's errand. It was a calculated risk by a military genius. He prepared meticulously. He built a great navy, perfected the use of the English longbow, and rallied his people with a fervour they had not known before. His first great victory came at the siege of Harfleur, a brutal 2-month affair that shows his unrelenting will. But it was the Battle of Agincourt in 1415 that sealed his legend. Facing an army 5 times the size of his own, sick and exhausted from marching, Henry V refused to retreat. On that muddy battlefield, the English longbowmen, in a display of discipline and courage, cut down the flower of French chivalry. It was not just a victory, it was a miracle. It was a moment that made a king into a legend. The legend of Henry was cemented. He went on to conquer Normandy, and in 1420 he forced the French to sign the Treaty of Troyes. He was recognized as regent and heir to the French throne, and he married the French princess, Catherine of Valois. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed as if one man had achieved what generations had only dreamed of: a dual monarchy of England and France. But his victory was not without a cost. The years of campaigning, the constant travel, the strain of ruling 2 kingdoms, all took their toll. In the summer of 1422, while on campaign, he was struck down by a violent illness, likely dysentery. The great warrior, who had survived arrows and sieges, was laid low by a simple disease. He knew his end was near. He drew up his will, entrusting the regency of England and France to his brothers and a close adviser. His great legacy, the 2 kingdoms he had so tirelessly worked to unite, would be inherited by his only son, an infant of just 9 months. On the last day of August 1422, at the age of just 35, King Henry V died. He passed away not in a great English palace, but in the French castle of Vincennes, far from home. His body was prepared for the long journey, carried in a procession of reverence and mourning back to England. He was laid to rest at Westminster Abbey, but his true resting place was in the hearts of his people. He had united a divided nation, led them to unimaginable victory, and given them a sense of destiny. His death, so premature, left a chasm of power that would lead to decades of conflict, a chasm that even a king as great as he could not bridge.